Good morning. Welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by our friends at the Get Go Cafe and Market, where in addition to actually being open for business, they are also parting ways with 7-inch subs for $4.99, joined from one home to the other by Dave Molinari, our hockey writer. And I'd love to talk about hockey, like actual hockey. But, who knows? I believe it's going to be back sooner rather than later. But what are you hearing from the people that you're talking to on a regular basis?
Well, right now, everything is open for discussion. There's, until there's some sort of certainty or at least a decent indication of when teams might actually be able to get together and practice, let alone start to play games again. The league and everybody else associated with the game is just going to kick around every possibility. I think we're still quite a while from anything being nailed down unless the league would decide to simply call off the rest of the season. And I don't think there's much possibility of that happening anytime soon, or any need for it to happen anytime soon.
No. When you see the NBA is opening its practice facilities, to their players in states that are at least partially reopened right now, and it isn't right now, it starts on May 1 for the NBA. Right now, that would only be 2 states, Georgia and Oklahoma. But by Friday, that multiplies many times over. Can that be a doorway through which the NHL can walk? I understand it's a little different with ice rinks and so forth, but probably not that different, right?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know that it's fair to give teams a competitive advantage based on their geographic location. I don't know all of the details of each state, but if the Utah Jazz is able to get in 3 weeks of practice before the New York Knicks are, actually, we could probably put together a team from the staff that would beat the Knicks. That might not be a good example, but it really doesn't seem fair to allow some teams, whether it's basketball or hockey, to resume practicing before all of their peers. It would be interesting to see whether ice would be something that would factor into that decision. Certainly, if some teams were allowed to start skating before others, that could be a huge edge, much bigger than being allowed to practice 3-point jumpers a couple of weeks ahead of the competition.
Yeah, and not to mention, you would think that that there would be a big advantage in anything that's team based, but if it's not, then you have a couple of challenges as I see it. One of them is that if these activities aren't run by a team or they're not team based, and by that I mean, let's just presume that there are players from other NHL teams in Pittsburgh or in another, you know what I'm saying? That just,
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that goes on than what people might realize. If those guys just kind of get together and skate, the way they do in the summer times before training camp, well, then it's not organized and I use the term advisedly, clinical, and you don't know that it's being run safely, which is another issue. Like, my understanding of the NBA is that they're going to open up the facilities. There's also discussion that those players who, let's say there's a bunch of them in California, which there are, and the Lakers are allowed to get going, but they're players from other teams that they could come in and use those facilities as well. To me, that just opens up a second can of worms. You know what I mean? Because how do you keep it safe? How do you keep it regimented?
Yes, and I mean, it seems to me you'd have to have daily testing of everybody involved.
Mm-hmm.
When they're going to be out mingling with other people, even if they do social distancing and self-quarantining and all that, who knows whose mailman might be passing along the virus, on a letter. It just,
I know.
Right at this point, it just doesn't seem practical.
No. Among the many plans, but one of the very few to be acknowledged publicly by Gary Bettman as being a real thing, is the concept of the four-city league, so to speak, where teams would kind of converge on four cities. We've seen a handful of those cities get mentioned, most prominently Raleigh, as it related to the Metropolitan Division, but none of that feels like or sounds like it's set in stone, is it?
Oh, no, no, I don't think, as with everything else now, it's still very much up in the air. And frankly, I don't understand why Raleigh got such prominent mention. Not because I have anything against Raleigh, because I think it's a nice area, and the arena there is certainly nice enough.
Mm-hmm.
But the Hurricanes practice facility would be an embarrassment to a high school team.
And they're building a new one, but it's not going to be done
Right,
in time.
it's not going to be
in
ready
fairness,
this spring. So, and I'm sure it'll be very nice and state of the art and all of
Mm-hmm.
that, but it won't be of any value this spring or summer. So honestly, I would think that Carolina would be one of the first places to be scratched off the list of candidates.
Yeah, I thought right off the bat, when I heard this and about needing multiple rinks, but particularly practice rinks that also have multiple locker rooms. That's a real big deal in this. The first city that I thought of was Columbus, because they have, the Nationwide Arena has that ice house in the back there that's actually connected to it. Now they share locker rooms for it. That's the one catch.
Yeah. Although most of the newer buildings, although I guess Nationwide Arena isn't all that new anymore, most of them probably have enough locker room facilities, depending on the number of teams you have. If you would want to bring 31 teams into your city, you're probably not going to have locker rooms for all of them.
No, and
but if you bring in, say, 4 teams because you're just going to go straight to the playoffs, most of the modern buildings now can accommodate 4 teams, and PPG Paints Arena is one of those.
Yeah, and that's to say nothing of if they were to get Cranberry involved. Cranberry is only, for anybody who's not from around here, is only a 20-minute drive up the road, and right now there's no traffic, so it's actually 20 minutes.
And it's probably even a little farther than the Island Sports Center, which is a nice facility. You could certainly
with locker
find
rooms and
practice venues in Western Pennsylvania, not too far from the city, because I don't think even if you brought in 4 teams and play 3 games a day, which seems to be the rough plan for now, I don't know how much practice time there would be available at the PPG Paints Arena. But there are adequate, very nice practice facilities within a pretty short drive of the city.
Yeah, and
that's just
obviously
one of the pluses it has.
Yeah, the other factor is the obvious one, which is that, let's say, for example, to compare it to the Devils arena, which is also a fairly nice arena and has a practice facility attached to it. It's way too close to New York. I mean, and not to mention New Jersey itself has been.
Right. That entire I-95 corridor
it's been hit hard.
I mean, anything between Washington and Boston, I think,
is rough. Yeah,
it goes out of consideration instantly. I mean, I can't believe those places will get.
No, but that's what I'm saying is that Pittsburgh, by comparison, has obviously been, thankfully not hit hard at all, actually.
And I don't think this is something you'd usually take into consideration when you're dealing with a short-term event like what we're discussing here. But you have some world-class medical facilities in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that having access to them, even if it's just to help with testing, that it would have to be another factor that would weigh in Pittsburgh's favor. I can't say that I know what the criteria are that the league is taking into consideration and how it is weighing them, but I think that Pittsburgh has enough going for it that it would merit some serious thought on the part of the league.
Okay, we can get one hockey thing in just for fun here, and this is a fun debate as to whether or not Alexander Ovechkin can catch Wayne Gretzky in goals. He's at 706 right now. Gretzky, of course, finished up at 894. Ovechkin's 34 years old. He's still scoring at pretty much the same pace he's always scored at. They've got him and Backstrom signed. Nicholas Backstrom, of course, for years down there in Washington. Can he do it?
Well, he can, but he also can catch Marty Brodeur in career victories by a goaltender. I just don't think the chances of catching Gretzky are all that much better than the ones of catching Brodeur, and that's obviously nothing against Ovechkin, whose credentials were well established many years ago. I mean, he's without question one of the great goal scorers in NHL history. But Gretzky's total is just so ridiculous that, I don't know that you're going to see anyone ever make a serious run at it. If Ovechkin gets within 100 of it, it will be an absolutely remarkable feat.
Okay, but he's less than 200 away from it now.
Yes.
And he's 34 years old, and he's still scoring. So we see now, and I don't mean the freaks that play until they're 45, like Chris Chelios or the way Yager hung around forever. But with Ovechkin's style of play, and I know everybody's just picturing him standing at the left dot, ripping one-timers, and there's more to his game.
Well, you know what?
That,
if it was that easy, there'd be a whole lot more guys just standing at the left dot,
right,
ripping
exactly.
shots and scoring goals.
No, he's really, really good at it. And theoretically, if you think about even when Mario Lemieux came back, he turned himself into that gunner type, where because he knew that he wasn't going to be able to, stick handle through Raymond Bourque's legs and whatever else and do all the fancy one-on-one stuff that he'd done his whole career. So he kind of changed his game to that. And that's what I'm thinking here. If Ovechkin, he's already that player. Why couldn't he play until he's 40? Even if it's, if he's putting in 30 goals or whatever with that ridiculous shot, it seems like it's plausible.
Well, yeah, and if he puts in just 30 goals, what's that mean? He needs 7 years to overtake Gretzky?
If it's 30, yeah, but he's still scoring at a higher rate than that, that's – I mean –
he hasn't found a way to reverse the aging process yet. And unless he comes up with that, his skills are going to erode. It's inevitable. It's happened. He, as great a player as he is, it's happened to greater players than he. Again, I'm not taking anything away from Ovechkin. He's a remarkable goal-scoring talent, rivaling almost any that I've ever seen. But that's just a mark that's going to be a little bit beyond his reach.
We won't agree on this one. I think
You're allowed to be wrong.
I think I could see him still popping 40 over the next couple of seasons, in which case he's right around the 800 mark. And then after that, I'll say it again, all he has to do is just kind of hang on. And and I know Ted Leonsis would let him do it. If that means even in a lesser role or lesser capacity, he can still be that power play gunner. And he's not. Look at it another way too. Anytime you're talking about the Russian guys, one of the thoughts that you have is, well, when they go back, so to speak, when will they go back and play in the KHL when they get older or whatever? We've seen, Ilya Kovalchuk did it. Other guys have done it. I don't know that Ovechkin would. Not if he's sitting there looking at that record.
No, I don't think that when he has fallen short by the end of his career, that it will be because he lacked the incentive to try to get the record. I'm sure it drives him, just as trying to win a Stanley Cup drove him for a lot of years. But just because you're really highly motivated and even highly skilled at what you do doesn't mean that you're going to be able to attain all of your objectives. And this is one that I think will just remain beyond his grasp.
We are locking this Java away for posterity. It'll reemerge someday.